Hey, what's up? It's BQ and TW with the Cool Factor podcast, brought to you by the Impact Lounge. Sorry that this is
What's
a
happening?
if you're yeah, what's up? Um, I'm sorry if you guys are checking this out on YouTube and this is just you're just seeing a graphic. It's just an audio. My camera isn't working. I've tried. I don't know what's going on with it, but my webcam is inoperable. It's not functioning properly. So we're gonna go audio on you guys today, if that's okay with y'all. Not that you can respond right now, so I'm just gonna assume it's okay with you guys.
We'll take your silence as an agreement.
There we go. I like that. I can dig that. So this is the Cool Factor podcast. If it's your first time here with the Impact Lounge, and you're wherever you're listening, consider becoming a valuable subscriber. If you're on YouTube here, give our video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber yet, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Anytime we are talking about it, have a discussion topic, or we're running over the show, just leave something in the comments. Just like every time we hit on something that you feel like you want to voice your opinion on, go ahead and do so that we can check that out and all that good ish. So let's talk about this episode of Impact. Um, we're gonna kind of break it down with cool, not cool, like we do, and then talk about some other things throughout the show as it pertains to the actual episode of Impact. And you know, this
All right,
format
you ready?
might change from week to week. If there's a hot news topic or a bunch of hot news topics, the cool factor is just going to be us talking topics. If it's not a whole lot going on, we're going to run down the show. So it might change from week to week. So just roll with us, and here we go. Let's get it cracking. So, TW,
All
take us
right,
through. What was the first segment? What was the first match? I forgot.
man. This first segment was loaded, bro. Honestly, okay. So we had Jake something taking on Diener in a tables match. We talked last week about how much we liked the thing with Jake something versus Violent by Design. So Jake something defeats Diener in a tables match. After the match, Moose attacks Jake something. He spears him, puts him through a table, and then Moose does the old "I'm stopping the show" gimmick. He takes a chair, sits down in the ring, basically says he's not moving until he gets his title shot. Then Scott D'Amore comes out and he tells Moose that he's making the TNA title an official title. So Moose has his title shot, but it will be him defending his TNA title against Jake something later in the show. Cool or not cool?
All right, so this whole opening match segment, all this stuff, I definitely give it. I give it a cool. I like both of these guys, and I've been talking, recently saying that with Jake, with Diener, that they're just feeling like stars right now, and I think we're now seeing the seeds are being planted for a Jake something main event run. That doesn't mean he's going to be the champion, but I think they look at him like this is a guy. Homegrown. He has the look. He's always had the look, man. And this is just showing how much that Diener gimmick was holding them back. And for for the minority of us who were familiar with him on the indies, when he came to the company and he was doing this Diener thing, I mean, I know we were pretty disappointed in that because we knew he was capable of a lot more. And
Right.
I mean, there's just such not to say a shelf life, but there's a low ceiling on what you can do with the Diener's tag team. So I can see the seeds being planted for a main event run here, and a really solid mid card run for Cody Diener. I still feel like he feels like a star, more
Mm.
of a star than he did before. But I don't think he's wrestling for the world title anytime soon. I think he's always going to kind of be in this. I shouldn't say always, but he's going to be in this lackey role for a while, because I don't really see him transforming back to his old character. So we're going to see this for a while. But he's always going to be second fiddle to Eric Young. But
Right.
the match itself was good. But what happened after with the TNA title? I mean, you called this a while ago that this is when I think Moose just came out with the title, and you're like, "Yo, put this title on TV, make it official, make it a title." And it's finally happened, and that's something I think either they're listening to the fans, or they got a different plan for the title. But no, just everything was great. The announcement was great. It would have just been a little bit, actually a lot bit better with a live crowd. What'd you
Yeah.
think?
Listen, man, definitely there's a lot to unpack here. I like Jake getting the win over Diener in the tables match. We should be leaving no doubt here that Jake is clear and far and away better than Diener, right? Like, I mean, I think they're better separate than they were doing that Diener's gimmick. But you said it yourself, man. Jake looks like $1,000,000. He looks like a main event player. He looks like he could step into WWE right now and be a serious player. And if you're TNA, I'm sorry, oh God, I can't believe I did that. If you're Impact, you got a guy like that, you got to capitalize on him. You know what I mean? You got to. This is a bit of a separate conversation, but through the forced kind of reshuffling that they had to do, Impact has a roster of untapped talent right now, a roster of talent that is pretty much unseen by the majority of the wrestling world, that is going to grow and build their resume, build their real, for lack of a better term, build their legacy, right, in Impact Wrestling. We're talking about, Trey Miguel, Chris Bay, Ace Austin, Jake something. Gosh, there's a couple more. Oh my God, I had somebody else in mind. But anyway, Impact has a roster of guys right now, at least 5 or 6 young guys who are truly building their resume right now. And it's a dope time, right? It's a dope time because this is the first time in a long time that Impact has had a roster of quality signature talents that don't have a name somewhere else, don't have a library of footage somewhere else, and are capable of doing great things being Impact Wrestling guys. This is the first time in a long time that they have that, and I just really want to see them capitalize on it. And a guy like Jake something, to me, he needs to be at the forefront of that. You know what I mean? This is one of the guys who can be, a flag carrying, flag waving Impact Wrestling guy. So just to get back on track of what I was talking about here, I love the TNA championship becoming an official title. But here's the thing. It makes me wonder if Moose is still in line to get that title off of Rich Swann. Because I think we all kind of felt that, that's where this thing was going. But yeah, I'm curious now as to, why would they make this move, making the TNA title an official title now? There's, I think Impact Wrestling is such a fluid situation. There's always a lot of moving pieces, and it makes me wonder why they're making this move now. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that as our show goes on.
No, let's talk about it now. I'm ready to unfold this a little bit now because I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately.
All right.
And as I said, you kind of called it when you said okay, they need to bring it back as a mid card title, and that's where I think that's where a lot of people's heads started going when he said it was going to be an official title. It's going to be a mid card because surely you can't have 2 world titles. But as I watch back, a second time, he definitely said there's 2 world titles. So right off the bat, you're going to assume, okay, well, they're going to do some kind of unification match between the 2 of them. But they could have unified it at Sacrifice unless they're going to fight again, which I highly doubt. Well, actually, we see the same people fight all the time, so who knows? But when they have this world title, match, his title is not on the line,
right?
And then the one thing I want to point out too is that on Impact's YouTube, my favorite YouTube channel in the world, there is no video about Scott D'Amore brings back the TNA championship. I mean, if they uploaded something like today or something, okay, maybe I missed it. But I looked on there there is, I think one of the videos does have the clip within the video, but if you knew about, if they knew what they were doing with YouTube and they don't, there would have been some kind of video of Scott D'Amore reinstates the TNA World Championship. Like that would have had more views, excuse me, far and away than anything they've put up there recently. That top 5 must see crap, which I hate.
Right.
These old matches and shit. This would have really got out there. So I guess where I'm going with this. Shouts out to Pat Krauthamel. He sent me a DM this morning that got my mind moving. My mind working on this. I think that they're having 2 world titles not because they want one to be a mid card title or they want to have an additional championship. Like I don't even think Moose is really going to defend it. I think when he said okay, I'm going to make it a official title, it might have been for like an episode. You know what I mean? I don't think there's really long plans with it. But I'm starting to think that Rich Swann is going to drop the Impact World title to Kenny Omega, and the TNA Championship, because Lord knows Impact's not going to show up on Dynamite. The TNA World title is going to be the world title on the actual Impact television show.
Ooh,
And
wow.
Kenny Omega will be walking around with the Impact title on Dynamite, maybe the AEW Championship too. It could be the other way around where he's carrying the TNA one around, but I think that would actually piss fans off in a not in a, oh, he's a heel. I think the longtime fans of Impact would be pretty upset with that if he was carrying the TNA title around on Dynamite and Impact wrestlers weren't allowed to show up on the show. So the more I really thought about this, that my gut tells me that it's going that direction, somewhere in that ballpark. Not, I don't think there's going to be 2 titles on the television show. Then they're going to be defending both, and Moose is going to be this fighting champion and shit like that. I don't. Well, he already said he wouldn't be a fighting champion a couple of months ago. So will he be a fighting champion? He said, hell no. But if this was where they were going with it, I wouldn't have had Moose defend the title at all, because he's been defending the title. Like he's been having title matches. They might not be real title matches, but so the more I think about it, I think because Rich Swann has not been made to look strong this year in any way, and every time he gets on a screen, dude, he looks smaller to me. My girlfriend was watching a little bit with me last night, and when not last night, but when the show was on, and Swann, when he jumped into the ring at the end, she was like, "Oh my god, that guy's tiny," and he's probably not that small, but it's like,
right.
I mean, you see Moose is in there and Jake is in there, 2 legitimate big dudes, heavyweights, and then this little dude comes running in, or he looks that way at least. And I don't think Impact's doing him many favors right now. Like, so I guess where I'm going with it is I see him dropping the title, Impact having no problem. Hey, you guys want this belt? You just got to beat this guy for it.
Oh man.
And then I think he's gonna be walking around with 2 championships on their show, and then Impact's still gonna have a title on TV.
Oh man, yo, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. Like, now that you mentioned it, I think that's it. I think that is totally it. Like, to me, there seems like the timing of this just seems a little fishy, right? Like the Omega symbol is on the graphic for Impact's next upcoming pay-per-view, and so we all kind of assumed that at some point, Rich Swann is dropping that title to Kenny Omega. But they've been telling this story about Rich Swann and Moose for a long time too. And so I thought they would just drag this out somehow. Like, I think I told you before, I thought the way this would go would be at least for the betterment of Impact, I thought the way this would go would be Rich Swann would drop the title to Kenny Omega. Moose would be pissed at Rich Swann, like, basically saying, this is supposed to be my world title shot, but I can't even get my world title shot because you're a loser, Brett. No. And
that's why I kicked your leg out from under your leg.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and so Moose would be pissed, and then I thought Moose would eventually win that title from Kenny Omega at Bound for Glory. So give Kenny Omega months to parade around with the Impact World Championship and do whatever he's going to do with it. Actually adding some shine and some visibility to that title, and actually making it a big deal when Moose takes that off of him at Bound for Glory. I thought that actually would have been a great idea, but that doesn't seem to be where they're going. That doesn't like you said, adding the TNA title as a world title now, again, at a time when things just appear to be so fluid, so constantly changing, with Impact, I just, man, there has to be a reason for everything. You know what I mean? There has to be a reason for everything. Nothing is just happenstance. And I think you called it, man. I think that's the reason. I think that, they're gonna have Rich Swann drop that title to Kenny Omega, and thanks to Moose, they will still have a world title on TV because Moose has that beautiful TNA championship belt. I think that's exactly what it is, man. I think you called it.
Right, which leads towards Kenny and Moose having an angle, because remember Kenny did talk about possibly collecting, but kind of doing like the belt collector thing, like
like
Austin Aries. Yeah, you know what I mean? So he, in the very first promo where he was kind of wasting our time talking in circles for 10 minutes when he first showed up on Impact, that's kind of what he alluded to a little bit, but didn't really get into it too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, that's where I think it's going. So because this whole time it's like, okay, what is the relevance of Moose in this whole thing? Because we knew he was involved, but they were kind of, like he was just kind of hanging around. You know what I mean? And we're sitting here expecting Swann and Omega to have an angle or something like that. And Moose just continues to hang around. It was just, and I keep saying we don't know where it's going. We don't. I couldn't even guess. And now I feel like I'm starting to see it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man, it makes sense. It makes sense, dog.
yeah.
It makes sense, like believe what people show you, like I'm a big fan of that philosophy. Believe what people show you. And if the signs of the story are pointing to that, this appears to be what's happening, then I'd go with that. Yeah. And that appears to be what's happening. So, if it looks like a duck,
and if you remember too, there was rumblings that they were going to do a second show, possibly. I don't know how much was kind of like fan made, a rumor that was kind of fan made, but I still don't see them going that direction where there's like a second. Because here's the thing, like from a branding standpoint, it is a nightmare to have two world championships, one being called TNA, which was what the company used to be called, and one being called Impact, which the company is called now. Like that's right. Branding has never been Impact's strong point.
Yeah.
I remember one time there was an interview with Al Snow, and when he was working for the company, and he goes, and the interviewer was like, "Is it called TNA or Impact?" He's like, "I don't know."
Oh. Right. But I think a lot of that, though, I think a lot of that, and this is unfortunate, like, a lot of people, this is such like a bigger discussion, like, listen, the reality is, in some form or fashion, this company has been around since 2002. And the fact that they have not established a solid identity, right? Like a solid brand for their product, solid branding for their championships or their show name. You know what I mean? Like there's still so much confusion, and yet they're still there. What's happened in the absence of establishing that identity is you've established, like the idea that you're chaos. You know what I mean? That you're constant chaos. And, a lot of the stuff that took place under um the Dixie Carter ownership, like just people just aren't willing to wake up one day and say, "Oh, this is new management. This is basically a new company. Oh, no, I'll forget about everything that happened before." Like people just aren't willing to do that. You
Right.
know what I mean? This is, TNA is, to me, the most damaged brand name I've ever seen in entertainment, and it's just hard for people to shake that, man. You know what I mean? It's just hard for people to shake that, which I found so funny that people are getting so nostalgic over it now, because, Lord knows, like that just wasn't, the name TNA was not something people were, clamoring for, you know what I mean? But, I don't know. It is what it is. But the belt looks nice. So it looks better than the current one.
Yeah, it does. And the current one's a cool belt. I mean, but the old one definitely, dude. And you're definitely right about, and clearly, folks, we're having this discussion topic in the middle here instead of the end. As you said, it's a damaged brand. It was a damaged brand. It just is. You just say in entertainment, there's not a brand more damaged than that, and that's what a lot of people have to understand. Like that's why they moved on from the name. It's tough because there's a history to it that they clearly don't want to let go of, and they're probably never going to move forward in the direction they want to until they're like, okay, we're gonna tear it down, And
Right.
I say this as a Clippers fan, where I remember at one point we were voted the worst franchise in all of sports. Um, 30 years with 3 playoff appearances and all this shit. And it really took completely destroying the organization. We did everything but change the name,
Yeah.
which I thought was coming. You just destroy it all and start over. And that's really the only way. And then you start building your identity that way. But there's a lot of like this, the brand is damaged, the TNA name, but they don't want to let go of it because we see it every week on the show, so it's always been confusing. So I don't see them doing like, okay, we're gonna have a second show called TNA. Like, just gonna make no sense. People would be so confused.
Yeah, like I said, listen, the original idea that I pitched, whatever it was, like a year ago, for this was that, that they should just have that title, and it should be called the Total Nonstop Action title, or just obviously TNA for short, but the Total Nonstop Action title, which pays homage to the legacy of where they come from, right? But it doesn't necessarily, it's not like, it's not like, you understand that it's a new product, but for all those who love, or are nostalgic about the name TNA, like it still shows some kind of love, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. They got to find a way. I'm actually to the point. I wouldn't mind them going back to TNA. It's just I do
Really.
fully believe it's too damaged to do that, but it's
Why,
hard being like
why would you want that though?
well, I shouldn't
Because I
say.
feel like the thing that this company needs most is stability, right? Like, listen, it's funny how, we have, like, as fans, this recency bias where not just fans of like of Impact, but just like fans of everything, like, I'm a Jets fan, and I thought it was so funny how the week after the Jets won that game against the Rams, meaning they were out of the first pick of the draft, now all of a sudden everybody's infatuated with this Zach Wilson quarterback out of BYU. I was like, yo, y'all didn't know who the hell this guy was a week ago, and now y'all talking about y'all can't live without him, right? It's just like whatever's the most recent thing, right? Whatever is the most recent thing to happen is the thing that people latch on to the most. And so, like, right now, yes, Impact is cooking, and I think that, like, it's cool that we're not talking about like the what can Impact do to like repair their name. Like, no, man, like. And this is honestly the value of this AEW working relationship. Like, when's the last time we talked about what can Impact do to be relevant again? When's the last time we had that conversation? Exactly, exactly, exactly. And this is what I was saying the whole time, right? That's the benefit of this working with AEW. Like people are like, oh, you know, you know, Rich Swann needs to beat Kenny Omega on AEW TV. What? Why? I'm like, yo, AEW, working with AEW has made Impact relevant in a way that it hasn't been in a very long time. And so anyway, like we forget that, not too long ago, Impact was in total upheaval, right? Like Tessa Blanchard, that whole debacle, fiasco, like, they were really grasping at straws, trying to find something to get some relevance here. And, like now they found it. But I think changing the name back to TNA after 2017, when it was TNA, then it was Global Force, then it was Impact, and it's just like, yo, this is all so LOL TNA.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yo, man, like, the last thing they need is more name changes,
Right.
more network changes. They just need stability.
Yeah, and it was actually TNA to Impact to Global Force back to Impact. No, but I should have clarified. I didn't mean I want them to become TNA. I guess I meant more in a perfect world. I wish they could still be TNA.
Yeah,
because they're
like
the
I've
only
never
company
changed.
that has just a name instead of three initials. Like it's just I just don't like it. Like I wish I liked TNA.
Yeah,
I'm just saying I wish it could go back to that. I don't think it's a smart thing. Just to continue to come across like a complete soup sandwich. But yeah, let's move on. Let's what do we got next? So we just had the opening match, and then what do we have next?
yeah. So moving along, we had Chris Bay, Ace Austin, Black Taurus defeating Josh Alexander, Trey Miguel, and Willie Mack to advance to a three-way for the number one contender to the X Division title next week. And then after the match, Sami Callihan, catches Trey in the hallway and just talks, crap to him until Trey snaps and beats Sami down. Did you like this? Was it cool? Not cool.
Yeah, I did. It was cool for me. I enjoyed it because I didn't feel like they were shoving any of the guys down our throats. I thought it was I thought all six guys felt relevant. It wasn't like they were just throwing guys out there, but it didn't feel like usually when they do a match like this, the only people who have an entrance is like Josh Alexander and Trey Miguel, and everyone else is already in the ring.
Yeah.
And I've never really liked that because it makes the other people in the match. Actually, I think they did that for the Revolver match. I think possibly. I could be wrong, but I feel like recently they did that. Or they started off a show. They started off a show recently where majority of the guys were in the ring already. So,
Yeah.
what they call
interest is never a good thing.
Yeah, what they call the jobber entrance, like
right.
So I didn't feel like they shoved any of the guys down our throat, which I kind of liked. They weren't like basically telling us without telling us who's going to win or who they're trying to push. But that being said, on the flip side of that, I feel like Josh Alexander lost a lot of momentum in a course of a week. Like he just felt like a jag, just a guy. Like he was just a guy in this match. Like he didn't feel like the one who won the Revolver match, had this kick-ass match last week, because it all happened so fast. We blinked and the matches just happened. And now I just felt like he was just thrown right back in the pool. And he was, I talk a lot about momentum and getting hot and how very few people on the roster have that momentum and very few people are hot. I threw a lot of I'll throw a lot of Deanna's run in that category. She had a lot of momentum at one point. Moose has had, Jake something is getting there. There's very few instances where people have like real momentum to them. And I felt like Josh was going that direction, and they give him that big match. It was over in a blink of an eye, and it halted. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I guess I was watching this match thinking, oh, they're just gonna push the shit out of Josh and Trey in this match, but they really didn't. So like I said, there's just two sides of the coin. There's one where I enjoyed that everyone kind of felt like they're on the same playing field. But then there's the other side where I was like, wow, they made everyone feel like they're on the level, the same playing field. Like Josh did not feel like he was a man amongst boys in that, you
Right.
know.
So you really wanted to see like Josh just come in and dominate and continue the momentum from the previous weeks.
Yeah. So I wanted to have that feeling that any of these guys could win, but I also I still wanted to see Trey and Josh Alexander kind of continuing the momentum that they've seemed to be on. So it was nice seeing Chris Bay get the win, of course. So
Yeah.
what about you? Cool or not cool?
So for me, seeing Chris Bay and Ace Austin advance to the next round of this X Division title shot, it's the right move 10 times out of 10. I know that in doing this, you've kind of sacrificed Josh Alexander, but I'm okay with that for this purpose. I mean, unless you were going to put Josh on the same team with Ace Austin, because if you weren't going to have him win, you don't want Josh to keep losing X Division title shots. You know what I mean? So if the plan is, hey, let's get Ace Austin a title shot, right? So let's say that the thing you're doing here is building up the X Division title as opposed to building up the X Division title holder, right? So so the current holder is TJP, right? Who's a phenomenal wrestler, so underrated, but for some reason he just doesn't feel like he's a guy they're building around, although he's the guy that they could build around. Now, let's say that let's say that your guy who you really want to come out of this shining is Josh Alexander. Well, maybe what you do is you have TJP run through 3 different contenders to really make TJP feel like a big deal. Then you have Ace Austin, end up screwing TJP over and getting the title off of him, and then have Ace Austin hold it for a little while so they can eventually lose to Josh Alexander. You know what I mean? Something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But Chris Bay and Ace Austin, to me, these 2 guys can be Impact's version of Brett and Sean over the next few years if they treat them right. Like these 2 guys have unlimited potential. And like I mentioned earlier, these guys don't have a history in, AEW or ROH or WWE. Like, they're not cast-offs. They are future stars. They are future stars. And my thing is, like, if you're Impact, I know that you have settled into being a developmental brand, but if there was ever a time to invest in your talents, it is now. And again, Josh Alexander, Jake something, Chris Bay, Ace Austin, Trey Miguel, like these guys are they have the potential to be what AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, what that group of guys, Bobby Roode, James Storm, right? Like that core group of TNA from what was that, 08 to 2013, right? Like that was the core group. And this group of guys that I just mentioned have the potential to be that. And so seeing Chris Bay and Ace Austin advance to the next round, it makes total sense because these guys, listen, they need to be doing great things. They need to be doing, Chris Bay and versus Ace Austin, Chris Bay, versus Trey Miguel, Ace Austin versus Jake something, like doing different things to build these guys up. But the point being, we're supposed to look up in 2 years or in a year from now and say, yo, this group of guys, this package of guys is who they're selling out buildings with. You know what I mean? So they need to be putting all the money on these guys right now. So for me, this was very cool because it's all future forward in a positive way.
Oh, yeah.
Did you want to have anything? Did you want to add anything to that before we go to the next thing?
No, I guess the only thing I would add is I was actually thinking about that today, about that time frame where there was a group of guys that were, like you haven't said it in a while, but you always say, "Where's our guys?" And in that time frame you're referring to, there was a group of guys, and girls that were constant throughout the years, and now it feels like the roster so ever changing that it's very hard to connect to it. and it's crazy that this is my favorite company, but none of the wrestlers are my favorite wrestlers. I mean, I'll throw Moose in there. Moose is one of my favorite wrestlers, actually, absolutely. I like Eddie a lot. I obviously like Alicia a lot, but someone was asked, well, who are your favorite wrestlers? And I had to list them like my top five. I would probably throw Moose in there, but then I would probably list four people from other places,
Yeah.
and it's crazy because this is the company that I choose to like really follow. And obviously I've been choosing to cover for years, but I don't have that connection to the roster because I'm just like, I don't know how long they're going to be here. Or I
Yep.
don't.
Yeah, no, that's totally it. And I don't think there's anything wrong or crazy about that, right? Like that's not your fault. Like these are conscious decisions that these guys are making. And they've done this, almost you can almost gauge, right? Like, would you be shocked if I told you that Rich Swann's contract was coming up in the next 3 months? Right?
I
Because
wouldn't be shocked. No.
that's been the pattern by which they do things. Is like when a guy is on the way out the door or a woman, get them hot, give them a title run, and then they drop the title on the way out the door. And again, I think part of that is designed to help this person have their value increased so they can go get paid somewhere else, which I think is a great thing. But again, where's our guys, right? For the people who are buying these pay-per-views, right? For the people who have been buying Impact Wrestling pay-per-views just to support. You know what I mean? Like, not because there's a match going on that I just have to see, right? For the people who have been buying these Impact pay-per-views just because we want to support, we want to see this company doing well. Like we're the ones who need to have somebody who we can cheer for. You know what I mean? We're the ones who need to have our Adam Cole baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
The Adam Cole stands still get mad at me because like I don't watch ROH. Like the only time I ever watched ROH was that brief time when they were the lead-in to Impact on Destination America. So I was not familiar with Adam Cole. So when I saw Adam Cole in NXT, I'm like, what's the big deal? And everybody's like, oh my God, he's the next Shawn Michaels. And I'm like, no, right? And so, but the thing is that, like, where I was going with this is like, the people who are so hardcore Adam Cole fans, they're people who saw his work in ROH and they're like, yo, this is our guy. And I'm like, that's cool. But they won't just say, hey, we love this guy from ROH, right? Like they're just like, oh no, he's so great. Why don't you see it? You know what I mean? But why doesn't Impact give us any guys that we can say that about? Like they don't build anybody to that point. And by the time Chris Bay is on the way out here, we should be saying that about Chris Bay, right? By the time Ace Austin's on the way out of Impact, we should be saying that about Ace Austin.
I do want to throw in that the promo Decay did afterwards, a little long, excuse me, a little long for a backstage, kind of promo. But I was thinking, I was like, dude, I missed this, man. Like Crazy Steve was just in his element. Rosemary was in her element, and the way they were in the shadows, it looked great. Like the way Black Taurus looked, it looked really cool. And I remember I did a podcast over a year ago where it was right after Rosemary had done the Real Housewives skit with Taya. And I said, what the hell happened to Rosemary? Man, I got absolutely destroyed in the comments of that video. I don't mean one or two people. I mean, I had so many people really giving me a piece of their mind, letting me know what they thought of me. Just, because they were, my negativity was just, they couldn't take my negativity anymore,
Yeah.
but I was just like, am I wrong though? Like, what the hell happened to her? Like, this is what you want from her? And
bro. Well, I mean, sidebar. I mean, like, but at this point, I think it's pretty apparent, right? Like, she got injured and she never quite recovered from it. You know what I mean? She's never quite. And as a matter of fact, she posted something on social media probably a week or so ago, where she posted like pictures of her knee scar, and she basically said like, I'm tired of letting this hold me back. and I think that, again, I hate commenting on people's, physical condition, because I'm a fat guy, and that's very hypocritical, but it's also not my job to be on TV doing anything athletic. So that said, you can tell that she's not in her best shape, and like, when you hear that she's recovering from a knee injury, right, that all kind of makes sense. And her not kind of being herself, being her best that she could be, at least from an in-ring standpoint, right? Like the idea that she's never quite fully recovered. I mean, listen, um, this is these guys are independent contractors. If you don't work, you don't eat. She don't have the luxury of, staying home until she feels comfortable doing her move set. Like that's not an option. So she had no choice but to get back out there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping, I think like one thing, we don't really talk about enough. I think Ethan Page, the guy who played Ethan Page, I think he had a great effect on the Impact locker room, because once he started getting in shape, I saw Chris Bay get his physique in order. I saw, Sammy Callahan has lost a bunch of weight. I think a lot of guys looked at Chris Moose, you know,
Yeah. Oh,
I think a
yeah.
lot of guys looked at him when he was doing that and was like, "Yeah, man, this guy's about to be out of here." Like, look, he's getting his value up. I think I should get my value up too. Sometimes you need that person around you who's busting their ass to, sometimes you got to see that guy in order to remind you that I need to be busting my ass too. And I think that I've seen that from a lot of people on the Impact roster, and maybe, just maybe, that has trickled over to Rosemary. So,
Yeah, it's very possible. And
yeah.
Ethan Page was played by Julian. But the Decay stuff was, it looked good, sounded good. Like, as I say, Crazy Steve was in his element. Rosemary's back in her element, and it really worked for me. And I was laughing because at first my eyes rolled because they had an Impact throwback flashback, and I was recently thinking, oh shit, they finally stopped doing that after 2 years of not listening to people at all that didn't like it. And at first I rolled my eyes, and then I was like, oh my god, I was at this match, and my son and I got a kick out of it because we found me and him in the crowd. He was a lot younger, um, and we got a kick out of it seeing us ourselves on TV. But yo, that match, Decay and the bromance, because we talk about how shallow the tag team division is now. Like, it was shallow, so shallow back then that the bromance had a world title shot. But yo, that match was excellent. Like, they did a very good job of making the bromans actually seem like pretty legitimate contenders at the time. Like, they found a way to just make it work. And yeah, dude, I remember that match, and it was just a cool match. It was my favorite match on the card, that pay-per-view. But that's just a total side note, so I can give the flashback its props for once.
Yeah.
Next week it'll be Angle versus Samoa Joe, and I'm going to be complaining about it again.
The bromans were a little underrated. I mean, well, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't,
Goddard's was
let
underrated.
me rewind that. What I meant to say was the bromans had potential that was never quite realized. I thought that like the bromans could have been one of those tag teams where they had like cool catchphrases. Like, this is gonna sound weird when I say this, but Robbie E didn't say bro enough. Like, like just think about like some of the promos he used to cut. If he would have just dropped in bro at like the end of like every sentence, like that could have really caught on where the crowd was doing it along with him the whole time. And that could have been like just one of those fun things. Like, the wrestling never had to be there. You had like two guys who were body guys and, good characters, and that would have worked just fine. Anyway, just my
Yeah,
2 cents.
actually, Goddard's was really underrated. And dude, I gotta say, dude, listen to the commentary on that. I miss. I mean, I've been complaining about Impact's commentary since I started doing this show, but as I've admitted before, I was wrong about Josh and the Pope. Looking back at it, I really liked their work, but when we were watching this match, I missed that Josh Matthews where he's like, Jesse like he had a deeper voice where he'd be like, Jesse Goddard's a modern day Adonis. You know, I don't know why I threw the at the end, but you know,
Yeah.
Bram, the brighter side of suffering. Like, and then it became this. I wonder if there's any new micro brawlers on the webs. Like, I'm just like, what happened, dude? Like, what that guy? Like, I liked. It was
Yeah.
when he started just, hey, Madison Rain, you ever been to a buffet before? You know, like that's the kind of shit that I started getting mad. But like back then, he wasn't doing that. It was
Yeah.
a complete different tone to his voice and everything. But um, I want to throw you. You're talking about bro. I watched Elimination Chamber. I've committed to watching every WWE pay per view now. Not
Okay.
I can't watch the show because I can't watch the promos and all that shit. I'll watch the pay per views though. And when what's his fuck came out, Riddle, and
Say
they call
what's
him
his
like
fuck?
the original bro. Like that's so stupid. Like
So stupid. So
that's
stupid.
like American Idol, where the first season they used to call Randy Jackson, oh the dog Randy Jackson, because he used to say dog. I'm like, everyone used to say that back then. Like
Right.
it's not he's the dog. He's the bro. Like
It's
shut
just people that
up.
are so unfamiliar with any type of like hip hop culture at all. That's what it is, man. They
Yeah,
just
exactly.
they gotta try to find some way to like quantify it and label it properly. You know what I mean? Like sanitize it to make it palatable for the uncultured.
Yeah, and I tweeted, I said, when Lashley came and attacked Galloway at the end, I tweeted out Q Impact's YouTube channel uploading Lashley versus Galloway from Slammiversary in 3, 2,
Yep.
1. And sure enough they did. And someone responded to me like, well, they did, and I'm glad they did. Like, good for fucking you. Um we already had this talk last week about cheap clicks and empty subscribers, and um, it's just it comes across so desperate, man.
Right.
It really does. I understand what they're trying to do, but I don't know if there was just a channel of all sorts of like really cool content, and then they did that, like it would be one thing, but not when it's like so blatant. My God, I was embarrassed. I saw, as a fan, I was just embarrassed when I saw that uploaded. I was like, I cannot believe they did this. But anyway, um, let's move on. We just finished up the X Division title match, and then we're moving into what
So the next thing we had was we had Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone with another one of those paid ads. This one featured Tony Khan and the not quite stars of AEW. Lots of disses here coming from the AEW people. Cool or not cool?
not cool, like 10 thumbs down. I hated this. I haven't enjoyed these paid ads to begin with, but this really felt like it was below the belt. And I think some Impact stars even quietly commented on this, where they were just like, we can't respond. It'd be different if we were able to show up on Dynamite, and they're not. Like, what makes it look even worse is that Tony Khan had said in the first couple paid ads, "Oh, I invite stars from Impact to come over to Dynamite." Like, he said it. He said it on like back-to-back ads. And it makes them look so stupid because clearly they don't really want them over there, or they're it's not a priority or whatever it is. But we're not seeing, you know, Swann show up there. We're not seeing Saban, and Storm is not really with the company, but we're not seeing those guys show up. Even when there
Right.
was the angle going to Good Brothers and Kenny Omega, and they would come over to Impact and start whooping their ass. Like, they didn't go over to Dynamite and return the favor. Like, they just haven't been allowed to. And I really thought that this was like really below the belt, having wrestlers, make fun of the company. And then I talked about earlier on their YouTube channel, they didn't even upload a dedicated video saying the TNA World Title was back, which kind of tells me, again, it's not gonna stick in the way we're assuming it's going to. But anyway, so look at the lineup. They got Britt Baker, who I absolutely love. They have Rebel, which it's so hard to believe that that's like one of the hottest chicks in Impact Wrestling history when you look at her character on AEW.
Right.
She's not in the same shape she was. I'm not trying to knock that, but she does this like really annoying chuckle. She did it on there. Like I fucking hate that. She does that on AEW Dark on the waiting room, her Brits talk show, which I like.
But she wore very little clothes when she was on Impact. And I mean, when somebody has a body like that and dresses like that, they can get away with an annoying laugh. Who even knew what her laugh sounded like? Who cared? Who cared?
No, it's like a corny chuckle that she does, trying to be like a because Britt has her talk show on AEW Dark.
Yeah.
And it's very Piper Pit-esque. But Rebel is supposed to be like the I don't want to call it the cheat. You know, when like Letterman would have a show and then he'd have the leader of the band or whatever, who was kind of like the side.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know, but like that's kind of what Rebel is. But she does like she just responds with. She laughs like that, kind of like Tony Atlas used to do on. You understand?
Yeah, Tony Atlas was
Yes. So they've got the two of them. So that hurt my heart a little bit because as I said, big Brit fans in this household. But then you have Brian Cage, who, this title wasn't relevant since I was here, and I like Cage, but as the champion, it was a joke. I mean, he couldn't defend it. They never stripped him of the title. They just didn't have a champion on TV. It was like Brock Lesnar. And then you got Ricky Starks, who's cool. Then you got Ryan Nemeth, who's Dolph Ziggler's brother, who is a straight up jobber. I mean, he lost to John Moxley this week in like 2 minutes.
Right.
And I don't remember. There was some other guys all the way to the right. I can't remember who it was exactly.
It was one of the private party dudes was on there too.
Yeah, and Matt Hardy, yeah. So, but I'm just like, dude, I was so disrespected that they had the Hollywood hunk Ryan Nemeth on there, because I'm just like, dude, he's a straight up like AEW Dark jobber, dude, and they have him in this little lineup making fun of Impact, and then saying, oh, well, there's not, there's more star power right here than what that whole company. Like, okay, maybe this is leading towards something, but we're to the point now. Well, let's see the seeds of what that something is, because now we're just getting mad as fans, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's to elicit some kind of emotion out of us, but now the people are getting pissed off. And I cut myself off earlier, but the Impact YouTube channel didn't post anything about the TNA title, but they uploaded this. They uploaded this disrespect to the company, and it's on their show, on their time, and they're allowing someone to just straight up disrespect. And it's not a good look. Like on YouTube, anytime someone disrespects me in the comments, even one time, I block them. And the way blocking works on YouTube, no one knows they're blocked. So they just leave comments, and they can only they can see them. So because on my channel, like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to allow that. I don't. Same thing on Facebook. Like, someone disrespects me on one of my Facebook posts, like, I'm gonna freaking block you or get rid of you, because that's my real estate. Like, that's my social media, So it's like, this is Impact show, and these guys are just. I understand if it's a kayfabe paid ad, and you don't have control over what they say, but then you upload it to the YouTube channel. That it's like it just comes off so much like, okay, we're kissing their ass, and then look at them making fun of us. How funny, So yeah, just major not cool for me.
All right, so here's I honestly come to I agree with everything you said, but here's the thing, man. Like, I feel like this is all part of the show. But let me get to my point that I was going to make here. So there was some news circulating that Tommy Dreamer had a problem with this ad, and he spoke about it on Busted Open this week. I couldn't find the clip of him speaking about it on Busted Open, but I did find a tweet that he put out where he said, promo lesson 101, build the person you're talking about up. If you win or lose, you have beaten or lost to someone special. Then, he wrote, when more than half your staff worked at Impact Wrestling, don't SHIT on the place that helped them, because you're basically shitting on yourself. Hashtag fact, hashtag Impact on Access TV. And listen, I come down on the side of, I think this is all the work. Okay, I think this is all the work. I could tell from the time they first started doing this that Tony Khan was playing a heel bad guy from the time they first started appearing on Impact. Like, he's definitely like he's killing it up crazy, showing some crazy bad guy wrestling manager, personality here. And I don't think that the disrespect is intentional. That said, or I don't think it's malicious. But that said, listen, a lot of people feel how you feel. A lot of people think that, this whole relationship is one-sided, and Impact is just getting the worst end of this. There's no benefit to this for them. I'm hearing a lot of this more and more. And a lot of people feel this way. And so at some point, there's going to have to be some sort of movement here as to what's happening, whether or not this is going to lead to some sort of face-off, some sort of storyline. Like I said, to me, I think it already is playing out as part of the storyline, because you've never seen Tony Khan show this kind of personality in any way. And so to me, I think this is totally 100% a work. That said, they picked the wrong people to come out here and do this, bro. They picked the wrong people to come out here and do this, especially Brian Cage. Bring your ass here, boy. You, of all people, you were the worst Impact Wrestling champion I can ever remember. Brian Cage was the world champion for, I want to say, 3 or 4 Impact Wrestling pay-per-views. The only one he main evented was the one against Sami Callihan right before he dropped it to Sami Callihan, because Sami Callihan was the only person good enough to pull a good match out of Brian Cage as Impact Wrestling champion. Stop me when I tell a lie. Okay? Stop me when I tell a lie. He was hurt for half of his time as champion. I saw the match he had against John Morrison where he actually won the title, and where he did something stupid and he hurt himself, and he was dead for the second half of that match. John Morrison completely carried him for the second half of that match, where he ended up winning the Impact World title. And he did, again, like, as champion, you drew nothing. You didn't draw one extra eyeball to the show. You were barely on the show as champion because you were hurt all the time. Sami Callihan said it like stuff said. He said, if you're a machine, you're like the milkshake machine at McDonald's, because that shit is always broken down. Like, you the wrong dude to be out here talking crazy about Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling pulled you out of obscurity, and made you a world champion. Get out of here. Brian Cage is a dude who is way too big to wrestle the style he wrestles. That dude looks like somebody, put a pin in him and pumped him up with air. You know what I mean? Like, and by the way, like, we ain't gonna talk about all these, freak injuries. Go ahead and do your research and find out, what type of people typically have a nagging bicep tear, a nagging tricep tear, a nagging quad tear. Find out, just do a little cross reference, make yourself a little Venn diagram between people who, look a certain way and have all these nagging little injuries. You know what I mean? And so anyway, a promotion that gave you a chance to be the head of the show, and yet you got crap to talk about the promotion that tried to make you a world champion. That's wild to me, bro. That's wild. As a matter of fact, Brian Cage posted a picture probably about a few months ago. It was a picture, I want to say it was after Bound for Glory 2018. It was a picture of like all the champions standing on the stage with their titles. And he just kind of posted it and didn't really like say nothing. And I think the implication was that, like, all of these, former champions are no longer with the company. And I was like, yo, man, like the nerve of this dude. Now, listen, I don't want to go too far out on a limb here because I don't know how Impact Management treats these talents behind the scene. You know what I mean? Like they could be on some really foul employee treatment type of stuff. And if that's the case, I definitely don't want to be here taking the side of management over labor. If that's the case. But I'm just saying, this dude got a lot of nerve. Look, Britt Baker, she's a rising, she's one of the people that AEW has invested the most, screen time in to watch them rise as a star. But I mean, like, come on, man, give me a break. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not stopping what I'm doing to go find Britt Baker doing nothing. You know what I mean? Like Ricky Starks, I think Ricky Starks is a real star. By the way, that's another funny thing too. When you see Brian Cage on TV stand next to Ricky Starks outshines Brian Cage by leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds, bro. Like it is so funny, dude. This dude, Brian Cage, man, like he looks like Tarzan, wrestles like Jane. You know what I mean? Like his faces are so like pre-packaged. He has like his fixed little scream face that he does as he's doing that little throat slash gesture. I'm like, bro, man, like this dude is not good, yo. It's like, again, like he looks like a pro wrestler, but it's just not entertaining, bro. Not entertaining at all. Like for real, like honestly, I don't see the value in Brian Cage at all. I really don't. So I just think it's funny for him to be out here talking about being a former Impact Wrestling World Champion when he was the worst of the Impact World Champions. And there's pay-per-views that he was on with that world title where he didn't main event. I think he was bumped from the main event for a tag team match and for Sami Callihan and Tessa Blanchard. Give me a break, yo. Dog, you not the dude. You are not the dude to be talking trash about Impact Wrestling, especially having been the worst world champion in that company's history, at least in the current incarnation of that company. Like, you know what I mean? At least Tessa Blanchard was who beat you, by the way. At least Tessa Blanchard was, you can totally understand, hey, let's put the title on Tessa Blanchard. This will be a very newsworthy move. Let's try something. You can totally understand that. But you were supposed to look, you know what I mean? You're supposed to move the needle. You're the machine. You know what I mean? Like all of that. Come on, yo, Brian Cage, you was the wrong dude to be out here talking junk. And the rest of those guys, like, again, clown status, except Ricky Starks. I think Ricky Starks is a big star. I'm not gonna lie. I think Ricky Starks is a big star. But the rest of those people, give me a damn break. Ain't none of y'all got no room to talk nothing about nobody, because all of you would be lucky to be in Impact Wrestling if AEW didn't pop up. So that's all I got to say about that. Like I said, ultimately, I think it's a work, but I had to throw some shots back on behalf of the Impact fans. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So backstage, we get Havoc and Nevaeh talking, and Nevaeh is saying she basically needs some time to, reevaluate what's going on. And then, once again, Tenille Dashwood and Caleb with a K come from behind the door, and she says, "I've been listening the whole time," and she offers to be Havoc's tag team partner again. Havoc walks away and says, "No, cool or not cool."
Cool, because I love everything Tenille and Caleb with a K do. I think giving Havoc and Nevaeh some space from the tag team division is actually a good thing. I don't want them to break up because we need the tag teams, but I think giving them some space is good because they, even though this program with Fire and Flava lasted a month, it felt like it lasted a year. And I think it's because the two of them wrestled a lot several months ago against each other. So I think it's good to give them a little bit of a break. I found Tenille to be really funny with where she randomly is like, "Oh yeah, and I got these earrings." Like that has nothing to do with anything. So
right,
I thought that was funny, and I do think this is leading towards Tenille ultimately getting a partner. hopefully using the influencer's name that she pitched on television for her and Alicia Edwards. And, I'm glad that they were able to just to bring Alicia into the storyline as Eddie's wife again. And now she's stuck in Swinger's Palace when she could have just been teaming up with Neil Dashwood this whole time and actually having matches and doing something and being part of real angles every week. So good call on that one. But and not to you, but to Impact. But yeah, good call. But I do think it's leading towards Tenille ultimately feuding with them with a partner that she debuts at some point. I could even speculate who, because I would have said Renee Michelle would have worked, but now that she's on Dark, I don't see that happening, because once you're on Dark for a while. So it has to be someone relative to her looks wise and all that. So I can't even like speculate who it could be, but I'm pretty sure that's where it's going. So it's cool because I love Tenille on the gimmick.
All right. So to me, this was meh. Wake me up when we get to the match. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like, nothing against Tenille, nothing against Havoc and Nevaeh. But I don't know. I'm meh. I'm not like nothing against the talent specifically, but nothing about this has me overly intrigued. All right. So we had the Good Brothers defeating Triple XL. Cool or not cool?
So it's another not cool for me, because I said this before. I talked about this before when the Good Brothers debuted and they wrestled Reno Scum. I felt like it was an opportunity to showcase Reno Scum, and instead they fed Reno Scum to them. And when it was time to hit the Magic Killer that match, they did it very easily. And that's what happened here too. It was just like, hey, let's send the match home, knock AC off the ring, and hit the Magic Killer. Like, at no point did you feel like Triple XL was going to win this match, or that they had a match. I was watching just before we started podcasting from Dynamite. It was Hangman Page versus Isaiah Cassidy from Private Party, and even though I knew Page was going to win, I still felt watching the match like they're presenting it in a way where the casual person doesn't know who's going to win. And I say that because, a lot of the time I'll watch, my girlfriend will watch with me a little bit, and I can tell when I always know who's probably going to win a match, but she doesn't. And there are times where she's watching and she does kind of get invested in the match and she doesn't know who's going to win. And there's time where she even can pick up on like, okay, they're going to have that guy win. Like she can feel it as a complete casual. And if I'm watching this match, I don't feel like Triple XL has a chance in hell of winning.
Right.
So that's just what I didn't like about it. With the tag team division being this shallow, like you really can't have jobbers or guys without any kind of momentum whatsoever. And now that we're gonna have an 8-man tag match next week, which is Finn Juice and the Good Brothers against Reno Scum and Triple XL, like they're probably gonna get their ass kicked, probably get embarrassed. I mean, we know who's gonna win this match. It's impossible for Reno Scum and Triple XL to win this match. Like impossible. There's just no way they're gonna win. But and I hope I'm wrong about this, but I think the day's gonna come where they're gonna regret going all in on this Good Brothers stuff. Basically letting them run the show and push the merch and all that good stuff. I understand that's part of the deal and part of how they were able to bring them on. But I think they're going to regret it one day. I think history shows with this company when they show that kind of I don't want to call it loyalty, but when they give someone that kind of freedom to do what they want to do, it usually bites them in the ass. So what do you think?
I think you're probably right about that last thing you said. But I watched this match and I just couldn't help but think, when's the last time Triple XL won a match? And I think that this is this is a situation where, again, I couldn't possibly, as someone who watches this product, I couldn't possibly think that Triple XL was going to win this match. There was no way. I could have thought Triple XL was going to win this match because Triple XL hasn't beaten anybody that I can think of anytime recently. Maybe on Explosion, maybe on BTI. But other than that, when have we seen Triple XL beat anybody recently? So there's no way that anybody who watched this product could have possibly think that Triple XL was going to win this match. And that's just all I could think about. Let these guys win sometime, and then it will matter when when they challenge for the championship, even if it is, a throwaway match just to give the champion something to do on TV. If they're going against somebody who we've seen win some matches, then you got something, that we can talk about. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, what are we even talking about? And so that's kind of where we are with Triple XL. So, like you said, there was no way I could have thought they were going to win this match. I didn't think they were going to win this match. And it was just like, okay, whatever, So that was that.
Yeah.
So this was meh. You know what I mean? I can't even say this was not cool because I just didn't care. I didn't care. This was meh. Very meh. So now we're at the Swingers Palace segment. All right. Everyone loved it there. Everyone was having a good time. James Storm and Rohit started getting into some trash talking, and it looks like that's going to lead to a match eventually. Alicia's back there, Johnny Bravo's back there. I like that Swinger keeps calling him Dino Bravo. That's funny. Yeah. But again, whatever. What'd you think about this? Cool or not cool?
I just give it a meh. It's leaning towards cool just because they sprinkle this into the program. It doesn't dominate the show like Who Shot Bravo.
Right.
It's just a little something. I'm to the point now. I do find Swinger funny. There was a point where I hated Johnny Swinger on the show because they were putting him in everything. Most likely, they're top 5 must see. Had a couple Swinger things, and people were clicking on this weirdo. And Impact saw, was like, oh, this dude gets clicks, so let's put him through. Let's weave him throughout the whole show. And there was a period of a couple months where it felt like he was in every angle, and randomly with Madison Rain and the talk show, I'm just like, what is this dude doing? Like, whose uncle is this? Like, like they say. So, but now I'm to the point because they use them, a little sparingly. Like, I find them funny, and it just gets the meh because we've already seen. No, you know what? I'm just gonna give it a cool because it put together a match with Storm and Rohit, which I have interest in because I like both those guys. Mm-hmm. So because it led to that, I'll give it a cool and leave it at that.
You just talked yourself into a cool, huh? All right, look, this is meh. Like, I think Johnny Swinger is really funny. But this is just clearly one of those things where they're just throwing a bunch of people in there and there's no payoff. We're gonna get a match between James Storm and Rohit. Great. Right.
I like both of them, so that's why I'm okay with it. But
I do like both of them. I do. But listen, one thing about James Storm is, like, if you give James Storm something hot to do, I think if you were to go to James Storm and say, we're gonna book you to chase the world title, I think you would see a performer in James Storm that would look like a superstar that could headline any show. But I think that when James Storm is not doing that, you can see it in his that beer belly shows up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it just, he's an excellent worker, but we've seen James Storm at his best, and we'd be lying if we said this is it.
Yeah.
We'd be lying if we said this is it. You saw James Storm in NWA. would you say he looked more excited to be there or in Impact lately?
Oh, with NWA for sure.
Okay. All right. And I think that, and again, I think it's noticeable. Like, Eric Bischoff was talking about James Storm on his podcast with Conrad, and he was saying how like James Storm would have the boo-boo face. And he's saying like how like, you could tell if James Storm was going to win or lose when he's coming out because he had the boo-boo face. And I was like, sometimes a guy like Eric Bischoff, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? Sometimes he's just trying to say something for the sake of saying something. But this is one of those things that is I found to be true. And I just gave you all the examples. So listen, that said, I still want to see James Storm wrestling on my television. You know what I mean? He's a quality performer and he does great work. So I got no beef with James Storm. But that said, a random match between James Storm and Rohit Raju, you got to sell me on it, and I'm not sold on it yet. This was meh.
Okay.
All right. So Eddie Edwards defeated Hernandez. The match was supposed to be Eddie versus Brian Myers, but Brian Myers' lawyer comes on the TNA Tron, and he says that Myers couldn't compete due to his damaged eye. Rest in peace, Josephus. After the match, Scott D'Amore tells Brian Myers that he'll be facing Eddie Edwards next week in an eye for an eye match. He was basically making fun of a match that Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins had in WWE earlier this year. Cool or not cool?
This just gets a meh from me because these guys already had a tag match already as far as Eddie and Hernandez and Brian Myers. Like they've already fought, so there's no real excitement for what's going on. It's not like building towards the crescendo of Eddie finally getting his hands on Brian Myers, who's been ducking him all these weeks. Like, no, because they've freaking fought already.
Right.
So I even want to say they've had a match one-on-one like last month or something. I could be wrong, but I feel like they did. So I don't have any interest. And it sucks because, Eddie is a guy that I like a lot. And I really, really like Brian Myers. And I know we differ on Matt Cardona, but I kind of like him right now. So, but I just didn't care because I've already seen a fight. They acted like, he was going to have this mystery opponent or something like that when it was just Hernandez. Like we didn't know that's who it was going to be. And
you didn't see that coming. Come on.
It just, I don't know. Like I just kind of didn't care. The post match angle was better than the match.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, I enjoyed him making fun of the eye for an eye match. I thought that was really funny because that was one of the most ridiculous things we've ever seen. Like, I don't know if you actually saw that, but like Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins had this match where Seth Rollins puts Rey Mysterio's eye out, quote unquote, and it's like a fake eyeball hanging out of Rey Mysterio's mask, and then like 2 weeks later, Rey Mysterio's fine on TV. It was the dumbest thing you ever saw. I thought it was funny that Scott D'Amore was like making fun of this. That was my big takeaway from that. All right, so we had Jordan Grace and Jazz defeating Susan and Kimberly. Cool or not cool?
I'll keep it simple. This was meh for me also, just because we knew who was going to win, and it was just a version of a match that we already saw. That's all I got.
All right. This was a busy match. There was a lot going on here. ODB came down and got involved. She ended up getting laid out in the back after the match. Jazz and Jordan winning the match to challenge for the Knockouts title. It's meh. I mean, we already saw this in the tag title tournament. At least it's a fresh matchup. They're not doing Havoc and Nevaeh versus Fire and Flavor again. But, I can't say that I'm terribly excited about this. All right.
I'll throw in there. When I was watching this match, my old lady was next to me, and she could tell Jazz was a little older. And I started, saying, well, Impact likes to bring in these stars that are like from yesteryear, and then she knows. I talked to her about business and marketing and kind of shit all the time, and she
Yeah.
knows when I started saying, that's not uh, the audience they need to be trying to appeal to. Like we have these kind of conversations about stuff all the time. It's like, yeah, I get it. And then I started, saying, they got this guy Ken Shamrock, and she's like, oh yeah, I remember him from UFC. I was like, yeah, from we were kids, right? Like this dude is like mid-50s wrestling. And then I started thinking, I was like, dude, they've had Scott Steiner in there, and I mean, it's like they just keep getting older as I'm like telling her about these people. And then I was like, they got this guy, the Great Muda, he's gonna come wrestle. Like this dude's like in his 60s or whatever the hell. It's something. He's old. He's old. Muda's real old.
Right.
And I'm just like, dude, they just keep like, is Jesus Christ gonna show up next time and God is his manager? Like,
He have a dope entrance.
yeah, dude. I mean, they just like get older and older. I was like, oh my Lord. So yeah, let's move on.
All right. All right. So our main event was Moose defeating Jake Something. After the match, Moose attacks Jake Something with a chair. Rich Swann runs out to stop the attack. And then we get the match made for Moose versus Rich Swann for the Impact World title at Sacrifice on March 13th on Impact Plus. Cool or not cool?
Cool match. I love the beginning where Jake attacked him from behind and then stood in his.
I like that. I
Oh
did
my
like
God,
that.
dude! It
That
stood in the light. That was freaking great. He's immediately feeling like a big star for the company. I mean, it's just night and day, man. It was like, again, as I said at the top of the show, someone who's familiar with him on the indies, I was so disappointed when that was the gimmick that they ran with, because like, dude, that's not going to go anywhere. Like you talked about, who did Triple XL beat? They beat the Deaners once. That was it. I think they beat the Rascals like on a pre-show for Bound for Glory because they were leaving the company or something like that.
right.
But he just they clearly had big plans for him if they had him wrestle twice in the episode.
Totally agree.
The opener and the main event. They look like two legit heavyweights in there in this wrestling world where it's small dudes in the main event. And then, as I said earlier, Rich Swann came in and, I mean, it's like he's shrinking. Came out there, it looks smaller and smaller, but I was happy to finally get this title match. Finally, and then be like, okay, this is going to happen. I like, finally, these two people are going to fight. And man, there's such a size difference with them. It's just going to be a really interesting match. But this was the one angle that I think they did a good job as far as Moose and Swann with kind of a nice slow burn, but it was still kind of going somewhere, and we didn't know what. I mean, it's still not over. We don't know what the they're going to do in the end ultimately, but they either blow their load on stuff or it moves so slow that we get bored. Like I think they just did a really good job with the feud, and I hope they don't treat Rich Swann like some castaway and just, okay, Moose is our star. We're gonna put the belt on him, kind of like back when CM Punk had to drop the title because they told him, we need the title for the Jericho and Edge feud or whatever. Like they basically told him, like, you're not good enough.
Rock and Cena.
What's that?
Well, I think it was for Rock and Cena. They had to have, because CM Punk had that long title reign, and it was like 400 days or something, and then he lost to The Rock at the Royal Rumble.
No, the one I'm talking about is when he lost they had a scramble match. I thought it was one of the coolest matches I ever seen. They had 3 scramble matches that show for the WWE, the World title, and the ECW title, where it was like a half-hour match, and every time someone won, they were the champion. And then
I've heard people talk about this. I don't think I actually saw that show, but
dude, I was so entertained. To this day, one of the most entertained I've ever been watching a match.
Yeah.
Whoever was the last man standing got the last pinfall was a champion, so like Jericho won it. So that's what it was. He needed it for a feud he was doing with Edge or Shawn Michaels or something.
Oh, okay.
So no, but I just hope they don't do that to Rich Swann, where it's like, hey, Rich, we need the belt for Moose versus Kenny Omega. I just hope that he doesn't get that kind of treatment, because I don't feel like Swann is. I just think he's looked really bad for a while now. I mean, taking that pin to Kenny Omega and then not doing anything about it. So, uh, I think I'm kind of getting into a tangent here. I was just basically saying I'm glad that we're finally getting this match, but then this actual Jake something versus Moose was pretty entertaining, and Jake was hanging, and he's in his element. He looks comfortable. I love it.
Yeah, so I agree that Jake looked like a star here, and I didn't love the idea of beating Jake so early in his run. He doesn't have to go undefeated like Goldberg in '98, but build him up so that his match with Moose feels like a big deal. Now, you could also argue that this is the anti-Roman Reigns booking where you get to see him lose early, right? So the fans can actually get behind him so they don't feel like, oh, Jake's getting a push right now. He's just going to beat everybody. Like, no, we've already seen him lose to the champion. So this idea that he's just going to plow through everybody, that's not even a thing now. So I think that's actually, this could be kind of a disarming move, right? But like you said, we saw him in the ring with the world champion. He looked like he belonged. He looked like a star. And yeah, I mean, mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. I thought this was great for him. He lost. He should have lost. And we got the match set up for Rich Swann and Moose, which again, I feel a little weird about it because I feel like this is not going the way I wanted it to go with the Rich Swann and Moose thing. So I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen here, but it's interesting. It's interesting. You know what I mean? The match is made, but I'm not feeling like the end destination here is Moose coming out of this whole thing looking like the franchise player. And that's kind of the way that I was thinking about it. The way that I pitched it in my head is, you have Kenny Omega get the title off Rich Swann. You have Moose get the title off Kenny Omega. And then you have a made man in Moose who can be, Impact's hood ornament going forward. And if they're doing the Rich Swann Moose match now, then that's not where they're going with this. So, yeah, I'm interested. I'm intrigued, that's for sure. But I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous for where this is ultimately going to go. But listen, ultimately, that's the beauty of being a fan. Is getting to watch it play out. So, yeah.
All right. So,
top to bottom, this was a good episode, though. A lot happened.
A lot did happen. But gun to your head for Rebellion, I think that's a pay-per-view is coming up, is the main event Swann versus Omega, Moose versus Omega, or Moose versus Swann versus Omega?
So let me start with this. I don't believe this company has any faith in Moose. I think that Moose was the unintentional standout of Hard to Kill, and he's in the best shape of his career. I think anybody with two eyes looks at Moose and sees a star right now. And so I think Impact is going to just ride him. I think if he gets the title, they're going to just ride him into their next phase of whatever they're doing with Kenny Omega. So if they had any intention of building around Moose, then I would think this is going to be, I would think it's going to be Moose versus Omega with Moose winning. But I don't think they want to build around Moose. So I think it'll probably be Moose versus Omega with Kenny Omega winning.
All right, fair enough. I think it's going to a triple threat only because they seem to be allergic to one-on-one matches right now on pay-per-views. So they're just in this like we got to find something for everybody mode right now.
Yeah.
And as I said before, it probably boils down to like all the guys paid per appearance, and they want to make sure, hey, we're gonna find something for you to do on the show. so we can pay you. That's
Yeah.
probably what it boils down to. But I think the pay-per-views. I don't think that the Impact Plus specials need to have the whole roster on it, and I don't think the pay-per-views do either. But that's not my call to make. But overall show, good. There was just, there's a couple parts I didn't like, couple parts, but the good stuff was good, was real good.
Yeah, totally agree. And listen, I think like if it, excuse me, if you're somebody who's like a fan of Impact Wrestling, you got to be happy with what's going on right now. You know what I mean? You got to be happy with what's going on. I mean, it's fun to watch right now. The shows are good. There's storylines developing. There's new characters being made. This is a good time to be an Impact Wrestling fan. I think it's weird because like I don't know how much faith we have in management, although management deserves some credit because they have been putting Impact in position to become more and more relevant. But I just don't know how committed they are to building Impact as anything other than a developmental brand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's fun. I'm enjoying it. So whatever. I'll take what I can get.
All right, cool. We'll with that being said, we're gonna wrap this up. Thanks for checking out the Cool Factor podcast this week, guys. We will talk to you again next week with another episode after another episode of Impact. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.